Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I do want to start off by saying that the first section of this episode is probably not appropriate for young kids. But I want to ask you, PSAS, do you know what that is? Hey, what would you do if you couldn't control your sexual arousal? Would it affect everything you do if you couldn't turn that off? Could that actually be a thing? Also, you want to see a strange tattoo? One that's actually got the person in to the Guinness Book of World Records. And you're not going to believe this strange abandoned structure. Check it out on today's episode.
Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and this is a place where we talk about all things strange and unexpected in our reality. Today, I have on with me co-host Anthony, and we are doing a random strangeness episode. 3 or 4 randomly strange topics that we're going to discuss and share some thoughts with you. So, Anthony, how are things going?
It's good. For this recording, it's still pretty cold outside, so I'm a little annoyed by that. That's about the only thing I have to complain about. Sunny one day, 65, and then 40s the next couple days. So I was outside today earlier, and I was like, well, can't wait for summer.
I bet. Me too.
That's about everything going on with me.
Well, wait a minute. I heard you had something going on with the car. So is that headache gone now? You got all that worked out?
Oh, with the car, yeah. So for those listening, I don't have I don't have a handy bone in my body, thanks to the person I inherited that from.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so when our car stalled the other day down the road, and a friend of mine is very handy, and he said, hey, let's fix this. So he came out, picked it up, and we talked to, like I said, he's pretty comfortable with mechanics. He was pretty sure he knew what it was. We talked to my neighbor who's a mechanic. He was pretty sure, and he agreed what it was, being an alternator. And then we even spoke to like another mechanic shop around here, and they said, yeah, it sounds like an alternator. So, of course, the way my car is made makes it impossible to replace the alternator in a timely manner. And so we spent 15 plus hours, basically over 2.5 days, or 2 days rather, changing this alternator out. And long story short, it didn't work. We had a brand new alternator, and that wasn't the problem. It was, for those who are familiar with the vehicle, a mass airflow sensor, which took like 15 minutes to replace. And so it was very frustrating, but it's funny to look back at it. And a lot of funny things were said during that period of time when we discovered that we had misdiagnosed the issue. And apparently what was wrong is very rare. So, to the credit of my friends and their defense, like, that's what it should have been, the alternator, but it wasn't. So anyway, yeah, so that was fun.
Don't you love to kill a day or two doing something you didn't have to do? It's crazy.
Yeah, the whole schedule was totally derailed. We had like internet being installed one of those days, so I had other people at the house at the same time. We had like a power outage and there was an issue with the power box at our house. So like we had people over for that. So it was just like, I'm sure my neighbors were just, saying, what the heck's going on over at their house? Like there's 6 different trucks.
Crazy.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy. But other than that, things are good.
Well, I'm glad you got that back and working, and your life's getting back in to the place it needs to be.
Yeah.
Well, look, so we're going to get into random strangeness, and I want to ask you a question. What do you think is the most annoying behavior you've ever seen a man do to a woman that he doesn't know? Anything strange that you've ever witnessed and went, what?
Well, I know what you're going to say, but the question is that what I think is the most annoying thing? Obviously, hitting on a woman is it can be very annoying. I don't blame them. Everyone's got to shoot their shot. Yeah. But sometimes it's clear and obvious the person that they're hitting on is not into them. or like just totally doing their own thing. I go to the gym a lot, so I see a lot of people with like headphones, like women with headphones, and people will approach them and try to start conversations, and then they'll just be sitting there talking about lots of stuff. And just as someone that's around them, I'm like annoyed. I'm like, get back to work. Come on, we're here to exercise.
Right.
You know, so I'm sure, I'm sure sometimes the ladies are feeling the same way.
Yeah, I feel like that's the same thing. So one of the things I thought of was New York City construction sites. Like, I used to work in Philadelphia for a while, many, many years ago, and there was nothing like seeing the catcalls and the whistles and everything. A poor young lady could not walk down the sidewalk without being just hassled by all these. Maybe some women like it. Most appear to be annoyed by it. So, yeah, crazy stuff. But that's what I think is one of the craziest things. Now, the one thing that is different...
Actually, let me throw in a story here.
Yeah.
So, you would think that's part of me. The older I get, obviously I can see that's annoying. But when I was younger, I didn't. You don't think about that. And I will say that I went to a place where there were lots of, let's just say, men interested in other men. Okay. Totally cool. That's fine. Whatever. That's your bag. That's your thing. But I got catcalled, and I was like, and I'm not a little guy. I was just like, oh my gosh, like these animals. Anyway, so that was the first time that happened, and I was like, that is uncomfortable.
Wow. Yeah, so you know what that feels like. That's crazy.
Yeah, in a weird way. I can't believe I do, but it happened to me. And like I said, that's your thing. Sweet, go ahead. But
yeah,
for me, it was, it was quite the experience. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's that is one that you're not going to forget for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so the topic that we're going to go into, this kind of made me think about it a little bit, just the attractions and just all that stuff. A lot of us think that there's a way that attraction, connection, intimacy, all that stuff should work. And then there's the things that are different, bizarre, and then there's the things that are just in some way possibly medical. So we're going to talk about one condition that's called PSAS, or the persistent sexual arousal syndrome, also known as PGAD, also persistent genital arousal disorder. It's a condition where a person experiences unwanted, uncontrolled genital arousal without sexual stimulation or even desire. Now, on the surface, I have some friends that probably would be like, yes, that sounds amazing. Mm-hmm. But we're going to get into this, and it's not so amazing and not so desirable. But once again, like on the picture on the screen, you expect to see guys sometimes do weird things like this. But, I had a guy that worked for me one time he didn't have this condition, but he was so crazy about this girl. He could not focus at all. And I had to come up to him a couple times and say, hey, are you with me? Like, are you here? And I wasn't sure that he was. And one time I even had to ask him to go home, to take the afternoon off, because he just was staring into the sky. He just was out of it. And Jeez. So, yeah, it was a really weird thing. And this was, a 20-some-year-old guy. I don't know why that was happening, but he was into her. So, arousal can be persistent, reoccurrent, or continuous, and can last for, guess what, hours, days, weeks. Could you function like that? I don't think I could function.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm the same with you. I would think that when I first heard about this, and this isn't the first time I had heard about this syndrome, when I first heard about it, I was like, there are worse things to experience. But I saw some videos and of people that are suffering, and it is a very rare condition. But I've seen some videos of people that can't function. I mean, they're walking and they just drop down to their knees, and then they have this episode. And I often wonder if it's kind of like, without getting too graphic, typically if you have multiple sexual or arousals or orgasms throughout the day, the first one's a little bit lighter. Some of the latter ones are more intense, right? So I wonder if you've been experiencing this for years if like it's just you're in pain essentially. You know, it's not like it's like this is a weird conversation I have, but it's not like it's like the first time of the day where it's like satisfying. It's just like at this point it's like, oh my gosh, like this. It's like am I making sense?
You are. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, like how would that be, and how does it affect, and what's the intensity? Who knows? Let me say this goes along right with what you're saying. Signs and symptoms of this: pressure, pain, vibrating, pleasure, irritation, clitoral or penile tingling, throbbing, vaginal congestion, contractions, penile spasms, prolonged orgasms, engorgement, male or female, and things literally going crazy down there, right? Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
What if you're walking? What if you're at work? Like, how are you dealing with this?
That's what I'm saying. There's people, like I said, just go to YouTube, check out some videos. I mean, there are people out there where it's documented and they can't even function, and it's embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
Because obviously they have to explain what's going on. Some of them can't have jobs. Yeah, it's just like all things. There's another condition we're going to talk about here in a little bit that sounds really cool on the outset, but there's just, the more you look at the human body, it's just a very well-balanced ecosystem. And just one thing like this that's meant to not be discomfort or not be painful, like if it's thrown out of whack and functions the way it's not supposed to, becomes very uncomfortable and disrupting.
Yeah, I mean, I often think, how would you report this to HR, to your manager? Mm-hmm. But hey, everybody out there, since you're hearing about this, it's a real situation. So what does that mean? If somebody comes to you, may have to really think or find out if this is a legitimate thing for them. I know it sounds strange, unbelievable, but it's a real thing.
Yeah, it might not be a joke.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect very many. It said it affects like 1% of women and less of men, but also it's a little, there's some taboo around it. So they said that it's very likely it could be affecting more people, but they just don't have the numbers because those people aren't stepping forward and reporting it because they're embarrassed and so forth. And this condition can trigger other issues, which is probably why it's important to talk to someone, is because it can trigger anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, right? Like it just becomes this deep, deep hole. And the research I was doing on it, the medicines, there's really no medicine for this syndrome, right? It's more so for the depression or the anxiety or something like that. Yeah. They can diagnose you medicine for those things, but not really. This is like something neurological that they quite haven't figured out what the issue is. So how do you, they don't know how to solve it.
This is a weird thing. I can't remember if I saw this sometime years ago on the show, or I even tried it once when I was younger, where like something was bothering you, your arm, and you pinched your leg to distract, right? To divert your attention to something else. A lot of the techniques to kind of defer your thoughts and consciousness away from this are one of the tactics that they use to try to help with this. So you're right. Nothing very distinctive in terms of medicine, but maybe practices, protocols to try to help yourself alleviate, walk away from some of this a little bit. One of the things is that I thought was interesting with this is that the orgasms typically don't relieve the arousal. So multiple orgasms over hours or days may be needed to maybe get this to subside, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's people out there that are experiencing this, hundreds of times a day. It is quite unbelievable.
A strange picture here, but, just imagine as a guy like, oh boy, what do we do with this?
It's stranger that I'm having this conversation with my dad. That's the strangest part of this whole topic and podcast so far.
It is. But see, there you go. We talk about everything and people. We're sharing it with you.
Strange things being discussed in strange ways.
That's right. So listen, patients may suffer from some of the following. You already kind of mentioned this. Let me just go through the list. Anxiety, depression, distress, frustration, guilt, insomnia, panic attacks. All real things that have been cited with this condition. Now, treatment is usually prescribed like you were saying, they're really, it's, or like I was saying, it's just cognitive behavioral therapy. Not much else really to do with this. So I don't know. I mean, this could be weird if you're with a young lady or you're married or whatever, and the lady acts very aroused all the time. This might be a question you might have, after it continues over and over and over. So,
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Strange one, huh? We
Yeah, very
talked
strange.
about it right here with everybody else. Strange conversation. Let's move on to the next subject. We'll let people research that and look into that themselves. I'm sure there are going to be people everywhere wondering, do you have that? Or if they see something strange or somebody too flirtatious, they'll go, I wonder
It's
if this
best to
person
leave
has-"
leave a little mystery
That's right.
for this.
Okay, let's hop into the next one. I'm curious. So I love the film 10 Commandments, right? We are taping right before Easter, and so that's something that comes on all the time. But I love that film. I've always loved it. It's a pretty old film. And we have Moses who predicts certain things to Pharaoh. Do you remember that? He's, Aaron hits his rod on the water, and then the water turns red for blood. And then there's things like fire and hail on the roof, which happens in one scene. Loved it. But imagine something turning to blood, right? People, have you ever thought of what if something you didn't expect to turn to blood did? So I'm going to talk about an experience here that happened in Zamora in northern Spain, where people woke up to a startling situation. This is 2014, and they woke up to what they thought was blood. It had rained blood onto their little town overnight and coated the town in a red hue. What would you do if you saw it raining blood?
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be strange because you grow up hearing about the stories, the biblical stories, things like that. Like you said, 10 Commandments and Prince of Egypt, stuff like that. And it's amazing, and you can have faith about it and truly believe it. But like if it actually happens in front of you, I'm sure there's a disbelief of like, what the heck is, like, what's going on? What is this? You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel with this. Is I don't know how I would react. I mean, I'm sure I would be pretty shocked and confused as to what it is.
Right. Well, and think about in times of past, maybe in history, things like this happened and people related it to the gods being mad or some kind of demonic thing or whatever. Fortunately, today we have science, and we are able to dig into some of this and figure out some phenomena. In this case, it was, kind of boring. It was algae. Algae that got caught up in a storm cloud, and it basically distressed the algae. The algae turned red, and then the rain actually was red. Yeah. This is a picture of the town here afterwards. Now, that's pretty red, pretty blood looking. Now here in southern Utah, you get the red rocks where the sand kind of looks like this. But most everywhere else, if you woke up to this, you'd be pretty surprised.
Yeah, this picture is pretty cool. I've not seen this one. What's fascinating is that so much of this algae or whatever could have been caught up in a storm cloud. That's on the science side. That's to me like the most fascinating part. Like you could think maybe. Yeah. There's, sometimes there's things that get caught up, evaporated into the atmosphere and stuff like that, but I would think it's a small amount. This is obviously quite a bit. It is quite a lot. So I think that's what makes this even more rare.
Yeah. Check just, you can see this here. This car got just splattered with it. One time here in Utah, we had what I thought was a mud rain. Everything was muddy from rain one time. So I think it was kind of like that. If it was red, it would have been the same thing, I think.
Yeah. Strange.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. It was only 2014. If anybody out there has seen this, if you were out there when this happened in Spain, 2014, leave a comment. Tell us. Share some information about what you went through and what your thoughts were when you first saw this. Definitely strange. Definitely. unexpected.
Curious if there's like a smell or anything to it. Like, you can smell rain when you're outside. I wonder if it just smelled normal, if it didn't smell at all. Just curious.
That would be if somebody experienced that, that would be really neat to hear your impressions and your personal experience. So, yeah, leave us a comment if you have the opportunity to do that. Okay, so there we go. Now we have another thing that's strange, completely in a different direction. Now, in the 1980s, I was in high school in the early 80s, and one of the big musicians and popular people out on the music scene was an artist called Madonna. Now, she's still around and still doing some things, but she's getting up there in age. Now, she was a big star back in the day, but here we have somebody who's actually got a Guinness Book of World Record for the most tattoos for the same musician on the same body. She's got 18 tattoos of Madonna all around her body.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw this article, I thought to myself, what causes someone to want to do that? I don't have a tattoo, and I don't have any tattoos. I'm not against tattoos. My thing is, like, I get sick of my same shirt after a couple days, let alone if I got something on my arm. It drives me nuts that I pretty much have the same hairstyle for the last several years, and older I get, that's not going to change, I don't think. So that drives me nuts. And so if I have a picture of Jack Skellington on my back, I would imagine that's going to, drive me nuts if I can't change after a while. So anyway, when I see people that do this, I often wonder, it must mean something. Like a tribal tattoo, I can understand. That's not going to get old, right? That's part of who you are,
right,
where you come from. But this lady basically did it because she just wanted to beat a record.
Yeah.
Right? Did you see that? The most tattooed person had 15 tattoos of Eminem. And this individual already had 2 tattoos of Madonna, found out about the guy or the gal who had the 15 of Eminem, and said, I want to beat that. I want to beat that record. And then that became her sole focus. And she had to borrow money, it says. She's like, I had to borrow money. I had to make deals. I had to do, like, she did whatever she could to beat that record, and estimated to spend close to $10,000 on tattoos just to be in the Guinness World Record. So, I mean, I guess, hey, her name is in the history books, but what an interesting way to do that.
That is a different drive than what most people might have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, tattoos are interesting. They're becoming more and more common everywhere you go. A lot of women have it, and a lot of women are really getting sleeves and stuff. I don't think that's the most attractive thing for a woman, but yeah, some of these look fine on people.
There's a really funny comedian that says that millennials have ruined tattoos. And he said, and I wish I could remember who it was, but he says, back in the day, 70s, 80s, you'd see, or even before then, you'd see a guy, big burly guy with a fish hook, just like on his forearm. And it was just bad. It was just bad to the bone. Like, that was a tough guy.
Yeah.
And he said millennials have ruined tattoos because they'll have a tree with birds and different things up their arm. And when you ask them what the tattoo is, they're like, it represents the growth I take throughout life, and the birds are those that I interact with that have changed the leaves of my nature. And it's this whole thing. And he's like, they've ruined it. They've ruined tattoos. It's no longer great. It's no longer, you see someone with a tattoo and it's no longer, damn, I'm not going to mess with that guy. It's now there's a whole story behind the tattoo. So anyway, that's just what comes to my mind when I see people with a lot of interesting tattoos that maybe have, that, I don't know, mean something to them. I don't know. But sometimes that story comes to my mind. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, it's interesting what people do and why they do it. But yeah, tattoos they've been here forever, and they're here to stay. And they are becoming more decorative and more comprehensive through somebody's body, more and more. So,
my wife says she wants me to get a tribal tattoo, but I said, I'm a white guy from New Jersey. I don't think the tribal tattoos quite fit.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm a buff guy either, so I don't know about that. But she's like, it'd be so hot if you got a tribal. And I'm like, no, everyone would make fun of me. So anyway.
Well, I'll look forward to see what happens.
yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll get a shirt. I'll get one of those really tight shirts. Like for Halloween, you can get those sleeves that look like tattoos. Maybe I'll get some of those.
There you go.
So when the mood is right, I'll just throw that on.
I love it. All right. Next topic. I want to ask you if you even know what this... Oops, no. Sorry. This picture is the extreme version of some tattoos. I forgot I put this in the slide deck, but... these people have more than 18, but there are all kinds of stuff. They've done some different things as well, which we've had some episodes to talk about these extreme body changes, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again in the future. But I'm curious about this one here. I'm curious if you even know what this picture is.
Well, I know that's the Jetsons.
Yeah. Did you ever watch it as a kid? I'm wondering if it was on...
No, I think I've seen clips of it. I think that was on. It just it would have been when I was really young. But I mean, I've seen clips of it and little parts of the show, but never actually watched a full episode.
Well, it's interesting because as I saw this as a kid, and I thought to myself, oh, this is from maybe late 60s, early 70s. But this cartoon actually was like 1962. I didn't even know that. So that's before I was even born. It's been around forever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Is it the Jetsons or Meet the Jetsons or what's it called?
Well, I think it's the Jetsons. The
Jetsons.
Part of the song. Yeah, the Jetsons.
Gotcha. That's right.
Yeah. And I think that's the song or the whatever goes me, George Jetson, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I can still see like part of it like in the intro where they walk into the ship, the glass closes and then they start flying off and stuff like that. I've seen parts of it.
Well, I bring it up because it reminds me of this next topic a little bit. We have abandoned strange structures, homes, things like that we talk about every now and then. And this next one looks kind of futuristic. See how these buildings are on poles and things like that? Well, this next structure is called the Cape Romano Dome House in Florida. Looks pretty cool, but doesn't it look futuristic?
Yes and no. It reminds me of it's like those shows where they blend old stuff with like technology. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's like it has this weird in between to me where it looks futuristic, but it also looks like it's made of concrete, just like that it's old. Right. Like an old building material, like not updated stuff. So anyway, that's how I feel. This picture looks pretty good. I've seen some other ones. Because if I'm not mistaken, it's like you said, it's abandoned now, and those pictures make it look like it's an unsafe thing to be in. But this one looks cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely look at a couple of those pictures. But you're right. This was back in 1981. A guy named Bob Lee, he was a retired oil producer. He felt like he wanted to build a structure like this on a place called 10,000 Island. Now, I don't know where that's at. I think it's up towards the tip of the Gulf Coast there. But I'm not sure.
The Gulf of America.
The Gulf of America now. That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
So let's take a look at the next picture. This is inside. Not bad, huh? His idea of this dome-shaped building was to eliminate negative wasted spaces and have a free large space. Also taking into account that the weather conditions would be less impactful because of the structure and the shape. And, out there they have hurricanes all the time. They've got these crazy storms. So he believed that this structure would hold up well. But it looks pretty cool inside.
Stilts, too, right? So the idea was that it would stay above the water as those hurricanes came in.
Yeah. Next picture. This is more like what's going on now.
Yeah. Did they move it? Didn't something happen where they moved it? Because that picture you just showed a second ago looks really nice. I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool. And but this is the picture. These are the pictures I saw where they don't look nearly as big. They look run down, obviously abandoned and stuff like that. I was curious.
Yeah, I think if I have my information right, it was originally built in that 10,000 Island, but then something happened. I guess there was erosion. And so they wound up moving the structure to somewhere else. And Geez, I thought I had it in my notes here.
I think I have some stuff here. I think it's Morgan Pass.
Yeah.
And Cape Romano. Oh, let's see. It's filled. Yes. Something like that.
Yeah. So, there you go. Yeah, I mean, I have here in my notes, your structure is set off 180 feet now from the shore. And then in 2017, Hurricane Irma unfortunately destroyed 2 of the 6 domes. So there were 6 of these domes at one point. 2 of them were destroyed, and 4 remain. So
it's weird. Yeah, see, those are the pictures I see now. Like, is that where they originally were? Because that looks a lot different than that picture from the 80s. That's why I'm confused. Why move it from something that looked like it was pretty secure to here?
Well, that's the thing. I think originally the shoreline degraded in that first location. Then they moved it to this location. And then after 2017, that shoreline is now gone. So this is, the picture doesn't show it, but if you go off to the right, probably 50 feet, there is shoreline. So it's continually just ending up in the water. So
yeah, this doesn't even look the same. There's no windows. There's, I couldn't even find a picture of the inside. I don't know if you have a newer or a more recent one, but it just looks like big concrete, structures right here. That doesn't look anything like those first pictures.
Right. I don't have anything new for inside there, but just looking at this, you can see there's really nothing left inside there. Mm-hmm. So, I have a question. Do you think, I always wonder, Florida's a beautiful place. Love going there, but it's kind of hectic for people who live there. Like, it feels like every other year people are having to pack up and leave because of a new hurricane and storms. And heck, they even, certain parts of Florida have sinkholes and things like that happening all over the place. It's crazy. It's amazing what people will do to live in a beautiful place and still deal with craziness, whether it's California and storms and earthquakes, or Florida with the things that are going on over there. But
yeah, I was just talking about this the other day with my soon-to-be brother-in-law. I said I would love to have a house in Florida, go there for a couple months of the year, and then rent it out in the meantime. I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm not sure how I'd feel about living there full time. I'm sure there's parts that are less affected by those hurricanes and different things, but you see some of the satellite images and stuff when those hurricanes come in, and it just like encompasses the whole state. So I don't. Maybe it's bad everywhere, but yeah, I feel the same way. Like, it's such a beautiful place, but especially along the coast. I'm sure like those are huge properties, very expensive. Everyone wants to be there. But like you said, every year they get, hounded with storms.
Yeah. I think the middle of the state does fairly well with avoiding some of these. But I have a friend that lives right in the middle of the state, and he was a firefighter for a while. And it felt like every 15 or 10 years, they still were dealing with it in the middle of the state too. So it's not as frequent, but it still is a tough place. You're going to have to, with the beauty and the warmth comes some of this as well. So, yeah. I want to refer people back to an episode I did back in episode 29 with the Oso mudslide. And that's where a town was built in Washington State. Or no, actually, it was Oregon. And the town or community was built underneath a hill, and there was a mudslide that took out the whole area. And it just makes you wonder sometimes how careful we really need to be when we decide where we want to live and put structures. Because I think sometimes we put things up in a way that doesn't account for the crazy stuff that could happen. So.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is I feel like what's unique about humans is the ability to create technology to defend against certain things. Not everything, but certain things. So I think, to your point, is weighing the benefits of moving somewhere beautiful and also being aware of what could lie or what circumstances could be in that area, because there's definitely different technologies and things that you can do that will help prevent certain, like hurricanes or whatever. I saw a guy during one of the last hurricanes that he had spent a few $1,000 putting these hooks in the ground around his house, and he put concrete down several feet, maybe 10, 12 feet, I can't remember. And when the storm came in, he had special straps that he had already custom made because he is from some island where they'd get hurricanes all the time. So he had these special straps, and everyone made fun of him because he would hook the straps and he'd run them over the top of his house. And so his house was literally strapped down. Wow. And it just big moving. They look like big ratchet straps. I don't know if you ever saw this, but the news was kind of making fun of him. Everyone was blowing up on the internet making fun of him. And he was like, when your roof goes, the rest of the house goes. So he goes, trust me, in all the years I've been dealing with hurricanes, this will keep the roof on and my house will be okay. And sure enough, after that hurricane, and it was a bad one, it may have been, I don't think it was Hurricane Irma. I think it was in the last few years, the last couple of years that this happened. But his house was fine. Wow. And he spent like a couple thousand, like it was very minimal. And he's like, this is going to save me my house. And it did. I mean, that house survived when a lot of houses in that area were decimated. And so anyway, moral of the story is he probably still had to evacuate and all that stuff. But there's, it's fascinating to also see how humans, we can't always prevent calamities and different things, but we're able to develop technologies that can help us endure them, type of a thing. And that's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah, that is. No, that's great. I'm glad that worked for him. And what a lesson to everybody else who really was making fun of him or hassling him. It's amazing when you see somebody who does something a little proactive, and then everybody afterwards is like, oh, it's like that Noah moment where,
yep.
Everybody's going, let me in the boat. And it's too late at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. I should try to find that. I'll send that too. But it was pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Anthony, Random Strangeness. We've finished this one. Any one of these did they stand out to you or maybe more favorite than the others?
I'm always fascinated by the medical stuff that we talk about. This one was, like we had talked about, something that just seems like it's super debilitating. The persistent sexual arousal syndrome. I'm always fascinated at how well balanced the human body is. And when one little thing that, again, is not meant for a bad thing, like sexual arousal obviously serves a purpose in the chain of human evolution and all that stuff, but just when it's a little bit out of whack or something's a little tweaked or there's something in the mind that pushes a little hard on a certain nerve or whatever, how easily that ecosystem becomes unbalanced. And so I've always found that super fascinating. So that'd probably be my favorite one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree with that as well. And then the first one with that medical condition, I'm just curious to see when people think that they assume somebody else has something. I'm just interested in the conversations that may come from this and what people will think as they assume or wonder if somebody else has this going on in their life. It's pretty cool.
And if you make a dirty joke at work and you get in trouble by HR, you just tell them you have this persistent sexual arousal syndrome. And the noise you made in the middle of the call center, that was actually that.
There you go. Could save your job.
Yeah.
Well, all right, everybody. Thank you so much, Anthony. Once again, thanks for having this cool conversation as we chatted today. Now, I just want to remind everybody out there that we could always use a new and a young show like this, your subscription. Sign on, subscribe, give us a like. And if you like what we do, you'll get all kinds of different types of information from us. We dive deep into topics. We interview authors. We go strange here and there. And we talk about really everything with things like our Random Strangeness episodes. So it's a fun way to drive to or from work and get a little bit of information about something maybe you didn't know before. So I think it'd be great. All right, everybody, support us. Yeah, that's right. So everybody out there, just remember as we close up today that there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until next time, stay safe. See you, Anthony.
See you.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.